Gene Vincent, because he was one of the forerunners in rock and roll, in America, he became lost a bit of popularity in America, and he came to England and came under the wing of Don Arden in London, who took him under his management. And I took dates on him, and he came to, I remember one thing at Torquay Town Hall, he had a minder with him. Gene Vincent was a tremendous personality, an actor on stage, but he was a nightmare off stage. I went in the dressing room at Torquay Town Hall, and he had this minder called Peter Grant. Now, Peter Grant worked for Don Arden as a minder. He later became manager for Led Zeppelin, and that was another story. But I went in there, and he got Gene Vincent's head through his arms like that, and he was bashing him on the top of the head. And I said, "What the hell are you doing, Peter?" He said, "Don't worry, didn't show any marks this way."
Probably one of the highlights of the whole era was the appearance of David Bowie. Lionel had him at the Pavilion around about 1972, just before he had his big hit, and then we had him for 2 performances at the Town Hall the following year. Out of all the guys that you see in the exhibition here up on the wall, who I've met and introduced, David Bowie is the one bloke that I've never actually met. When I went to put him on stage at the Pavilion, I went down to the changing rooms, and he had a very large bodyguard called Stuart. The guy was almost as wide as he was tall, and he was 6'4" tall. So I said, "It's time for the band to go on stage." And he said, "Okay." He said, "I'll fetch them." I said, "That's all right, I'll get them." No, he said, "I'll fetch them." So I went back up on the stage, ready to introduce the band when they came up. And Stuart came up first, and he said, "Off the stage." I said, "I beg your pardon?" He said, "I want you to leave the stage." I said, "You're joking. I always put the bands on the stage." And he then physically picked me up and carried me off the stage and put me outside the stage door.
Cream, Eric Clapton. I got on very well with Eric and his manager. Eric Clapton was formerly with the Yardbirds. He left the Yardbirds and played around with a few other bands, and then he formed a band which was called Cream. You got Ginger Baker, Jack Bruce, and Eric Clapton, and it was all in the papers about this first, what they call supergroups. They hadn't recorded anything. They were forming as a band. They got masses of publicity as a supergroup. The first booking they ever had to launch them in 1966 was the Jazz and Blues Festival. Now, their manager was Bob Stigwood, and he rang me up and said, "We got the Cream doing their first live appearance at the Jazz and Blues Festival, but they would like to do some live gigs out of town. Can you give them a few gigs down in the West Country?" So their first ever live appearance in 1956 was at Torquay Town Hall. They came, I paid them £75 on that day. They came back the following year when they'd had hit records, LP out. I had to pay them £300 then. You want me to tell you about the Beatles that I turned down? So a lot of bands wanted to come down and do a week's work and play my dance halls. They weren't big names, they were small bands, but they could play my small dance halls around. I had a phone call from Brian Epstein saying he'd got this band. They'd just come back from Germany. They're recording, it's going to be a big hit. It's coming out in the autumn. I've got nothing to do for the summer. Can you take them down in the West Country? And Brian said, "I want £150 a week." I said, "Brian, it's £100 or forget it." He forgot it. And that was it. So what memories would I have had, photographs I would have had. Anyway, they had the first record come out, it went to #2 very quickly, So I rang them up and said, "That band of yours, I'll take some dates on it." He said, they're £1,000 a night. I said, do you really? I said, you must be joking. I said, I'm paying the Who, the Kinks, the Cream, I'm paying them £600 a night, and they got 2 or 3 hit records on their belt. You're never going to get £1,000 a night for a one-hit wonder band, or number 2 band. End of story.
The Kinks, the Kinks stood out for me because it was absolutely packed. It was so packed you could not move. It was great atmosphere, you know. And hearing a band live without any computers or anything like that, you don't realise at the time when you're a teenager, but we were really lucky.
Pink Floyd, the band that didn't turn up, right, that was, they were quite a good big name. They were booked in advance at the height of the summer season. They were sold out, tickets had all sold out. On the Monday, I got a phone call from the management asking if they could move the date. I said, what do you mean move the date? We'd like to move it to the autumn. I said, but for this Saturday date, you mean? They said, yes. I said, well, A, it's sold out. B, I don't really want to have it in the autumn when I haven't got the holiday makers here. I said, well, why do you want me to move it? And they said, well, the Stones are doing the free concert in Hyde Park, and they've asked Pink Floyd to do the support. And I said, well, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to do it. You can't let the fans down. I can't get a replacement band in there and sort it out between now and Monday to Saturday. So that was that. And a couple of hours later, they rang back and said, right, we think we've sorted it. They're going to go on early. We're arranging for a private plane from an aerodrome in Kent to fly them to Exeter. If you can arrange to have a car there by 5 o'clock and pick them up, we're sending the road crew down with all the equipment, And sure enough, on the morning, the road crew arrived, set all the equipment up, sound tested it and everything. 5 o'clock come. In those days, there was no mobile phone, so the chappie at Exeter had to keep going to a phone box. We had a phone in the kitchen of the town hall. 5 o'clock, he rings in. I got a person standing in the kitchen, take the calls. Not arrived yet. Come 5:30, hadn't arrived. Come 6 o'clock, haven't arrived. 7 o'clock, still haven't arrived. And I said, well, hang on there. The doors opened, people started coming in, support bands started playing. 8 o'clock come, it still hadn't arrived. So I said, no, you better make your way back. So about 8:30, I went on stage and announced that there had been a problem and Pink Floyd weren't going to be here in time. If anybody wanted to leave and get their money back, they could. Very few did. The place was packed. Everybody was enjoying themselves. The support bands were playing. So the night went on. Monday morning, I ring up their management. What happened? Why didn't they turn up? He said, the crew turned up, the band didn't. Oh dear, he said, we turned up at the aerodrome, the plane was there, but no pilot. I said, really? And they said, yeah, I'm awfully sorry about this, they said, but there's nothing we could do about it, couldn't get a pilot. So I put the phone down, I thought, right. So I got onto the aerodrome. No, they said that the plane was there, the pilot was there, they didn't turn up. It turned out that the Stones were throwing a party that evening. So they decided not to do the gig, even though they would lose the money, but they wanted to go to this party. So I thought, right, I didn't lose a lot of money because nobody all walked out and demanded their money back. But I thought, this is not on. You can't let bands do this. So I took a writ out against them. So, big newspaper headlines was, Pink Floyd booked to do their first American tour. Blah, 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 blah. I thought, right, okay. So I put an injunction on them. They couldn't leave the country until they settled the writ. So they paid up. And I bought myself a nice white Jag. And I always say that Pink Floyd bought me a Jag. I bought it, but they paid for it.